Hi there, and welcome to this week's acting vlog, and this title is "Baking the Cake, but Not Eating It Too." This week was again a really good week, as they always are when you're doing acting. It was really good, together with Fern, and obviously we were doing working in the group, reflecting on the past weeks. And so for me, I had missed the first session, but for me it was the movement training that we had with Ellis, and also then working with Shanta the last week about the character breakdowns and character briefs and auditions and things like that. And so this week we were working a bit more on cold reads, but this week we were also discussing those things, and I really, the whole idea of like we do so much research into characters or script analysis and look at the backgrounds and things like that, but often we then forget the most essential thing, the character, and who are they, where do they come from, how do they speak, how do they move, and that often gets forgotten with a lot of like history checks and things like that. And I have to admit, I'm a sucker who who'll go off, and like I did recently, who'll go off and buy like history, not buy, get history books on a topic, and read all that stuff and watch documentaries and stuff, but then often forget to then actually look at the character and who are they in this story. So didn't do that this time for my recent screen test that I did for a feature film, but we'll see how that comes out. But yeah, it's so important. That's essentially you're working on a character, and you become that character, and yet we often again make it so complicated, and we busy ourselves and forget the most essential thing of like this actual person that we're becoming, you know. So that's so true. Just bringing it back, bring it back. Who are they? Where are they from? What do they do? And how do they speak? How do they move? How do they walk? How do they talk? And yeah, you must know where you are in the scene. You've that a big one again. I find is the imagery. Also, one of my challenges is really seeing where you are in the scene, and and I find that's one thing again that we easily forget is the placement of imagery, but place actually go through the script and go through the scene, and really like look at that image of like what is there. Is it a bar? How the chairs look? How does the bar look? Where are the bottles? Where's the entry? Where are the toilets? Really go into that detail, and really create that. Recent thing that I think I want to do also for my next script work is actually see if I can like draw the scene, draw it out, because you're like again bring it, a bit like when you write down the lines when you're learning lines. Like maybe if you even like draw the imagery, whether or not you're a good painter or drawer, you're still like creating those things, and you're forming them in the space that you have something to actually refer to. So it's like for me, in my scene that I did for that recent screen test, the character, he reads the letter, and the letter has quite some meaning. So for me, I was like, well, what might have been written in that letter? What could it be? And it's from his brother who has like recently passed away. And so I wrote that letter, because I mean, yes, of course you can look at a blank piece of paper, but why not actually give yourself something that you can physically read and maybe even be affected by? And that, I mean, that's for me personally. That's my thing. That works for me, or I feel it works for me, because I don't have to put anything on. I can actually just feed off something that is actually there. And yeah, with the audience following the title of this log, um, I love the analogy. Is it the cake analogy that Fern gives us? You know, the cake, and not just making a cake that looks pretty, but also you know, making a cake that tastes good, and that you're making the top and the bottom, and yeah. But importantly, yes, you make a cake that tastes good, but you don't eat it yourself, and you don't pre-chew it for your audience. So knowing that our audience is smart, and we have to allow them to, you know, cut a piece of the cake off, slide it onto their plate, look at it themselves, and then eat it themselves. But as an actor, we often try to pre-chew it for the audience, and actually like cut the piece and be like, look at this wonderful filling. Yes, try now. Oh wait, oh sorry. Here you go. Let me feed you. But we don't let our audience, you know, feed themselves, and actually take in the scene and interpret in between our silences or our looks, or you know, how we are feeling in the scene, and just put their own interpretation on that, because that's so much. You know, we will look at somebody's behavior, and depending on our life journey, we will interpret that differently, and we'll read into that. And I think that's the beauty of, like, you know, the really good strong acting, is that you leave those spaces for them to fill in themselves, and then together we're actually creating something. You know, it's not just me handing you everything on a plate. That is the big thing, time and time again, that comes up, and where you allowing the audience in just becomes so much more powerful, and that just, you know, creates this delicious cake that they then can eat as well. With that as well, so important to know thyself, and you know your ins and out, know your strengths, your weaknesses. I was speaking about it the other day. You know, emotions. Some you go easily to. Some you have difficulties going to. Maybe knowing why. You know, why do you have difficulties with anger? Why do you have difficulties with grief, or things like that? And really doing work. Like, you know, I think there's nothing wrong with doing. Well, you can call it personal development, but also even therapy. You know, some of us have experienced a few things more in life than others, and there's nothing wrong with that. The thing that's wrong with that is if we, uh, well, some even use acting as therapy, to live that out, or think we can draw on that, but don't know how to deal with that, or, like, you know, to go in and go out. So with, well, to touch on Strasbourg, with the, you know, going in and going out and drawing on personal experience and things like that. That's, yeah, something I haven't really 100% delved into, just because I've not really learned the actual technique as such. But I've done, you know, memory recall and things like that. But yeah, like, you know, I've done my own therapy before, but I'm sure doing more of it is will definitely be beneficial, because you just learn so much about yourself that you can then draw on, and you know your blind spots, and things that might trigger you, or things that come easier to you. So definitely, yeah, I'd say, you know, go for it, but know how to be safe, because no great scene is worth that to for somebody to say, like, wow, you were so connected, and it takes you, you know, weeks to get out of that again, or even years, or you never get out of it, just because you've opened up a lid of something that you didn't know was there and you didn't know how to deal with. Um, yeah, and with, yeah, with scenes in general, like, just we want to find that fun of the choices, and movement, and different ways of trying it. And yeah, more and more I'm seeing that as well. It's like, how many different ways can I give this a go? It doesn't always have to be the same, and just, you know, that's the fun bit. You know, just give it a go, and see, like, okay, let's try this differently. And you want to, I guess sometimes you do it consciously, but then also unconsciously, that's where you want to find those moments of gold, where it's like, oh, I didn't know didn't know that the scene could be played this way. Well, and just letting that run freely. Yeah, with the don't deliver your line. Offer your line. I love that. That was a good one. That in a scene, it's not about delivering line. It's about offering. Here is what I have to say. Now, how do you receive that? How do I affect the other opposite me, and how do they respond to that? And then how again in return where does that hit me? How does that feel what they say, and then how does that make me want to respond? Not, ooh, here's how I've thought of delivering my line. On this next line, my action is going to be that and that, because that might change depending on how the other person said what they said. So again, this idea of like, don't go in preconceived, or I mean, go in with an idea, but you better be prepared to change that up, because shit might fly through the window, and you got to be prepared to deal with that. And yeah, so sorry, you just went flying. Welcome to the roller coaster that is my life. The whole idea of offer, listen, and then feel, and rinse, repeat. So that's a good one. Yeah. The question of the week was, why don't we always realize whether we are doing a good performance? Do we leave it to the audience to tell us if we are good? Now, I thought about that, and I think it's a yes and no. I feel, for me, I mean, my personal journey, I'm more and more learning to be like, yes, I feel that was fairly connected, let's say good or bad performance, and hell no, that was like, I didn't believe that, and yeah, I can like watch myself back and be like, was there truth in that? Do I get actually, do I connect emotionally to that again when I actually watch that back? And I feel one thing that I was thinking about is, maybe it's because if you don't do your own work, like at all, if you don't write things yourself or create things yourself, you are left a bit at the mercy of your audience, because your gauge is a bit off. Whereas if you maybe try creating your own work, or again, put yourself in that state of play that you are able to just give things a go, to then learn how to feel about that yourself, that's where that's where then you kind of like left up to someone else's opinion on what they think. Whereas if you start creating your own work, you start writing your own monologues, short films, I mean, or even just, I don't know, create an own dance, then you start just going with how something feels, or you just because you're creating something yourself, you take more responsibility or ownership of that you can actually judge it yourself as well and interpret it. Again, that's how I feel. Or I feel that since I've started writing a bit more monologues myself, and just writing little scenes myself, that I've kind of like felt more ownership about it, and can say like, actually I thought that was good, or no, that didn't work at all, that was terrible. So yeah, and that balance, because your audience like feels so different all the time, and you don't have power over that. Like you can just deliver something, and then again, it's that cake and they have to eat it themselves. How they eat it, and whether they like lime mixed with vanilla, you can't force that. That's something they have to decide for themselves. So you can just make this beautiful cake, and just let them eat it, and hopefully they like it. If not, well, you still baked a cake. That's not bad. Well, with that, I'll probably just leave it, and wish you a good week and see you soon. Enjoy that cake.